Hey, it's Dr. Shantae, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. You know, Valentine's Day has come and gone, and even though this is very much a commercial holiday, it is a cash grab to bolster the economy. It's one of these kind of like Hallmark holidays. Not to say that it doesn't have historical significance, because it does. But some of the observations I've made over the weekend have kind of jumped out to me in a way that I want to speak to. I saw so many people make posts on threads and social media saying things like, this is my last year without a Valentine, or this is the last year that I'm going to be single, or I'm determined, to find my person or my wife this year, or what have you. And that's great. I think that healthy love and healthy partnership is a wonderful thing. At the same time, the subtext of those types of tweets, threads, the subtext of those types of statements is that being single is an undesirable circumstance. That being single is a step down somehow, like that it's a sentence of some kind, that it is a punishment of some kind. And that is simply not true. So in this video, I am going to be giving my unsolicited 2 cents about reframing this idea of being single as some sort of subjugated status, some sort of secondary status, some sort of sentence, some sort of stigma, because there's a lot of stigma associated with being single that is really unwarranted. And we're going to be talking about it in this video. Keep watching. So let's zoom out and then kind of get to more of a granular focus. First of all, there is an economic incentive to be partnered. Why do you think the United States government is so heavily legislative over women's bodies? Why there are penalties, there are tax penalties for being single? It is to incentivize people to be coupled. And the reason why they want people to be coupled is because the American economy needs laborers. And how do we get laborers? People need to be partnered. People need to be in love. At a bare minimum, they need to be hunching. Okay? So if you're not doing that, then this is where birth rates decline. And the U.S. birth rate is declining. And when the birth rate is declining, that means that people are aging out of the workforce, and we don't have a new crop of workers to come in and replace them. So there is absolutely an economic incentive to see people partner, to see people coupling, at a bare minimum, to see people procreating. Okay. And so all of this legislation over women's bodies, they try to throw this like religious gloss over that, like this religious veneer. But if you look at the history of the Republican Party, this really only became a hotbed issue in like the mid 80s. Okay. But before that, they were very much kind of like, hey, it's your body, your choice. And all of that changed due to fears about being replaced, and that, needing to get birth rates up, and, all of these things that are tied to racist ideologies and supremacist notions. Look it up. This is why there is such a push. There's all this propaganda about being coupled. This is why dating apps are cash cows. Okay. It is a billion-dollar industry cashing in on people's deepest insecurities about being alone or being unpartnered. So that's one. Number two, sadly, unfortunately, truthfully, there are too many people. That's what I'll say. There are too many people that see relationships as a means to an end. So rather than seeing a person worthy of love, affection, attention, nurturance, connection, friendship, joy, and devotion, they see a life insurance policy. They see a place to live. They see somebody who's going to cook the meals, somebody who's going to clean the house, somebody who's going to make the doctor's appointments, somebody who's going to make sure the cars get, serviced. They basically see a resource rather than a person. And so, for that reason, there are so many people who are partnered and yet miserable. And this is where I want to kind of challenge and push back on some notions about our thinking around what being partnered means or what being married means. There are a lot of people who legitimately, genuinely believe that partnership equals this pot of gold, okay, this litany of resources, okay, this path to like prosperity and love, and it will validate your worthiness and all the things. But here's the gag. As somebody who has worked with clients who are married, partnered, miserably so, people who are partnered and are the loneliest they have ever been in their life, married and lonely, married and abandoned in the marriage, okay? Ring on the finger and abandoned in the marriage. This happens to people all the time. But thought that, oh, marriage means a guarantee to be free from all of these terrible things that happen when you are unpartnered, or all these terrible things that happen when you are single. But here's the gag, folks. We, me, you, me and you, your mama and your cousin too, have the power to assign meaning to our circumstances. You and I have the power to assign meaning to our circumstances. What that means is, if you are single or you are unpartnered, you get to determine what that means for you. You get to determine what that means for your life. You get to assign the meaning to that circumstance. But all too often, we accept somebody else's interpretation, we accept some societal interpretation of what that means, and we internalize that and we make it mean, oh, I'm not worthy. Oh, I'm never chosen. Oh, I'm always the bridesmaid and never the bride. Oh, I'm always the starter girlfriend, but never the wife. Oh, nice guys finish last. Oh, that's one interpretation. But there are other interpretations. There are other options on the board. Let's talk about them. Many people think that being in a relationship equals happiness. Show of hands, how many of you know people, have known people, or have experienced being in a relationship and you were not happy? People tend to think that being in a relationship means that you are chosen. I can tell you, you can be somebody's spouse and still not be their choice. There are people who marry or settle for who's available, for who's around, for who said yes, for who gave them a shot when they were ready to settle down, but are secretly pining for another person. It happens all the time, okay? How many people have found out that their spouses were closeted, okay? That they were secretly in relationships or in communications with other people, with members of the same sex, and they didn't even know that they had those inclinations. How many people have found out that their spouses were still in contact with old girlfriends, or, or past loves, or what have you? You can be the spouse and still not be the choice, okay? You were just a good fit for the role, okay? Especially if that person sees you as, well, you've got good health insurance. Well, you've got good credit. Well, we can take you've got the good car. We can take your car, okay? Like, you come packaged with these benefits, and so many people work so hard to be turnkey, right? Like, hey, I'm coming without drama. I'm coming without baggage. I'm coming with good credit. Look at me. I am prime real estate, right? And then get into a relationship with people who have not met you there, who don't have that same package of benefits. And because you are in love, it's like, oh, my love for you, well, I'll take care of us, or I'm happy to invite you into this package of benefits that I offer. And people see the benefits package and are like, yeah, sign me up for that. And at no time does that mean that that person has chosen you, but rather chosen the resources that come with you. Okay. So there's a difference, and it's important for us to make those distinctions. And it's also important for us to stop making these assumptions that just because you're coupled also means you're chosen. It could mean that, but it doesn't always. Another assumption is that being partnered means that you are connected, that you are not alone. It is very possible to be alone in your marriage, especially when that person has not chosen you as a person to love and chosen you as a resource to be used, or a convenience, or you had a nice house, or again, you had resources. You were a strong worker. You had a good work ethic. You were a great cook. Any of those things, okay? Or you had a lot of money. Any of those things, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that there's connection, because relationships require relationships require effort, intention, and consistently so. Okay? The thing about it is that a lot of people think that, well, I have this ring on my finger, so he chose me. I have this ring on my finger, so she chose me. But the thing is, you have to keep choosing each other. You have to keep choosing that person at every stage of their evolution. You have to keep choosing that person when they're up and when they're down. You have to choose them when they're sick and when they're healthy. You have to choose them at all of those phases of life that you make a commitment to at the altar. You have to keep choosing them when they physically change because of illness, or maybe they physically change because of childbirth, or maybe they physically change because too many chicken wings, whatever. And it's like, I still choose you. You're still my person. And too often that stops happening. Okay. And that's how people wind up abandoned in their marriage. Okay. That's how people wind up abandoned in their relationship. And then here's the big one. Being partnered or being married means that I am worthy. Anytime you are relying on an external validator of your worthiness, you have already lost the plot. Anytime you are waiting for somebody else, another human soul, if you prick us, do we not bleed? Anytime you are waiting on another human soul to give you the stamp of approval, to give you the stamp of worthiness, when you don't come into the relationship or come into the coupling already knowing what you are worth, already knowing that you have value, already knowing that you don't have to do anything to be worthy, that you are just inherently worthy. When you don't come into it with that mindset, you are already behind the 8 ball. You are already going to struggle, because now your worthiness and the ideas of your worthiness are always going to be tied to somebody else's perceptions of you. And that is dangerous. On the flip side of this, there's also assumptions about singleness. Like, being single means don't nobody want you. Does it? Being single means that you're going to be miserable with your cats. Does it? Being single means that you're going to die alone. Does it? Does it mean that? I can tell you that has not been my experience. In fact, I don't even use the word single. People are like, why are you single? I'm like, I'm not single. I'm an unrestricted free agent. That is my preferred designation. Why? Because I get to assign meaning to my circumstances. Okay. So single is not a sentence. Single is not a punishment. But if that's the common understanding, then I choose unrestricted free agent. You know what an unrestricted free agent is? An unrestricted free agent is someone who is still very much eligible to play. Okay. has done the conditioning, can pick up the ball and get on the squad and be ready to play next day, but is currently undrafted and enjoying the perks of free agency because that means that they are untethered to and uncommitted, and even though they're still very much a playmaker, they basically have the freedom to be they have the freedom to explore their options. And that's what I do. That's how I live, with the freedom to explore my options. And it doesn't mean that I am unchosen. It doesn't mean that I am unworthy. It doesn't mean that people are uninterested. People are interested, but I also have to be interested. Okay. And here's the thing. In my season of free agency, so I have been divorced. Oh, wow, 10 years now. Man, time flies, y'all. Goodness. I've been divorced for 10 years and I have dated in that time. But in that time, I have also learned to love myself at the highest levels, because I used to believe all those things that I just talked about in the previous segment. I used to believe that marriage and being coupled was tied to and guaranteed all of these things that it just didn't, that it just doesn't. Okay. And I was also led to believe that being single was this horrible thing, and that you were going to be alone, and that, you were a reject. And it doesn't mean that at all. I have become the best version of myself. In fact, here's the gag. I do not recognize the version of me that was married. I like, from where sitting on this side of the fence, to look at who she was and the power that she gave up, and the many times that she had to abandon herself, and the many times that she had to suck it up, and the many times that she was used as a resource, rather than loved as a person. I don't even recognize her, because I thought that that was what was required to stay married, that was what was required to be in partnership with somebody. And then I realized that was a whole lie, that was a whole lie. And that I had been socialized, conditioned, led to believe that I had to center a man in order for my life to be worth its salt. And a lot of this came out of the church, but that is, baby, that's another video for another day. So in my season of free agency, I have been to therapy. I still have a therapist. In my season of free agency, I have traveled. I have cultivated hobbies. I have deepened friendships. I have traveled the world. I've seen Beyonce in other countries. I have gone to jazz clubs in Tokyo and speakeasies in Kyoto and temples in Osaka. I have gone to the US Open. I've done so many things. And I have loved not having to have conversations about where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I'm with. I do what I want, when I want, how I want, because I can. I love the freedom inherent in free agency. I love the life that I have built. I love coming home to a clean house. I love not having conversations about, you taking another trip? There is no conversation to be had. I just get on the plane and go. I love that I have raised a beautiful child, who was thriving in her sophomore/junior year of college, that she is a rising star, that she is a positive contributor to society, that I did not sacrifice myself in raising her, and that she has a mom that she can look to, that she didn't grow up looking at her mama sad on the couch crying about, don't nobody want me, don't nobody love me, they nobody chose me. She don't know nothing about that because that's not who I am. And that is not where my value is. I'm responsible for my happiness. I am responsible for setting the boundaries and setting the standards for my quality of life. And I did not have the freedom to do those things when I was in that other situation. Now, let me say, just so I'm clear, I love love. I love love. I love love. I love healthy love. I love healthy marriage. I love healthy partnerships. I love two imperfect people that are doing the work to choose each other at every stage of evolution. I love that. I love to see it. And I am open to experiencing that. That's what I'll say. I am open to experiencing that. But please, if you get nothing else out of this video, please know that whatever you think about your circumstances is a meaning that you have assigned, and that at any time you can assign a different meaning, that you can reframe your perception of your circumstances in a way that only you can do. So I will leave you with this. The real flex, really, just like I said on my Valentine's Day short. So if you haven't seen that, go and watch that short. The real flex is really learning to love yourself at every stage of your life. There is value in healthy partnership. There is value in being with someone who loves you and not just what you can offer and bring to their lives. Okay. There is value in learning to love yourself. There is value in learning to meet your own needs. There's value in all of it. There's value in all of it. And learn to love all of it. And you get to decide at every stage of life what that means. That maybe you're not too late, and maybe you're not falling behind, that maybe you are exactly where you need to be, that maybe where you are is equipping you for a new chapter. But it is okay to be content. It really is, especially in an economy that thrives on you being discontent with yourself, especially in an economy that profits from your misery. It is okay to learn to love yourself at the highest levels, to teach people how to treat you based on how you treat yourself, to be able to assess your life and say, this is my threshold, and that anything that does not meet me here cannot remain. It will not sustain. And so if you are living your life at this level and loving your life at this level, anybody who comes into it should be able to meet you right here or take you higher than what it is. But we don't start here and go down. We don't do that. Oh, no, absolutely not. And it doesn't mean any of the things that people think it will. It doesn't mean misery. It doesn't mean that you'll die alone. It doesn't mean that you don't have an emergency contact. It doesn't mean that you're not important. It doesn't mean that you're not a priority. It only means that if that is the narrative that you have assigned to it, and at any given time, you have a choice to tell a different story. So, hopefully, this gave you some things to think about. As my girl Jill Scott says, if you haven't seen her Tiny Desk, go watch that. Oh, it's so quintessentially Jill, my fellow Aries sister. And if you have not already subscribed, please subscribe, like, share this content. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.